Welcome to we're only 2 weeks away from the season edition of Sharing Sox. I am Southside Sox duty geezer Leigh Allan. With me, my son, who is currently the downtown Chicago correspondent, since he's in rehearsals for the Cherry Orchard at the Goodman Theater. If he starts speaking Russian, okay. A lot of Russian baseball fans, so we'll be in good shape. Obviously, with what came off, we're recording Monday morning. Obviously, with what came off Sunday, we have to get to the elephant in the room, who apparently is going to stay in the room all season. But first, the White Sox survey, which they do periodically, maybe once a quarter or so, of fan attitudes came out. I went, yeah, but Will did it. What's on it?
I actually did do it. It's interesting. It's not just a bunch of softballs to tell us how great we are. There's a lot that talks about, why do you come to games? Is it about spending time with family? Is it about socializing? There's an interesting section where it talks about the things that are most important to you, with a winning team being one, a great ballpark environment being one. And then one that I was kind of interested in is the game being played the right way was one that they.
I think, I've done it in the past. I mean, I've done it every time I've gotten before. Today's the first time I went, I think that question's been in there for a while.
Well, it was interesting. It was interesting to see that question. I put that as a 10 for me. It was my only 10. I didn't even put winning at a 10 because I can enjoy a baseball team that's not winning if they're playing the game the right way. And ballpark experience. It had you go through every player and list whether you know who they are or whether you don't know who they are, or if you know them but you're not on their side yet, if they're growing on you, if you like them, if you only root for them in a game, if they're your favorite or if they're one of your favorites. And they send you through everybody. So as hard as it was,
like 26 everybody's or 40
I,
everybody's or
I think it was closer to 26, but there were some guys in there, Nicky Avila being one of them, where I was like, well, he was first on the list, so maybe it was alphabetical. I wasn't actually paying attention.
Abreu's not there anymore. Well, hold it.
Uh,
Anderson's got to come before Avila.
I don't think he did. Nick Avila was first on the list, and he was one of my. I haven't decided yet how I feel about him, guys. But they go through it, but then I think the most interesting section talks about the disconnect or connect between the team and the fans, and that was kind of the section where I politely mouthed off a little bit. They were asking, do you feel like ownership, do you feel like leadership has a connection to the city and the fans? And I was brutally honest there in that, no, I don't. I think this team stays hidden from its fans as much as possible. There's quite a bit of dishonesty, quite a bit of gaslighting from the team. So I encourage anyone out there to take this survey and share your feelings. Because there is an opportunity there, whether they really take it into account or not. But they're spending the time and money and manpower to do this survey, so somebody's going to look at the results of the survey. So I would actually get on there and talk about that, because I was very vocal about Reinsdorf and his seeming disdain for not only the game of baseball, but for White Sox fans. I didn't get into Williams and Hahn because I didn't want them to think I'm a blogger. But it's definitely worth taking that. It only took 5-10 minutes to do the whole thing. So I would get out there and do that if you wanna be heard, which we so seldom are as White Sox fans. If ever, we're virtually never heard. There's a little talk about stadium stuff, pricing, that kind of thing, stuff you'd expect from a preseason survey. But I did appreciate the opportunity to talk about the team and its connection to the community and its connection to the fans, which I think neither are particularly impressive right now.
No. And I'm sure when you said the team, you're talking about the management team, not the players individually. Or are you?
Well, they do talk about the players' connection to the community as well, and how important getting to know the players and seeing the players in the community is for you as a fan. For me, it's pretty
Oh,
high because these are millionaires who have a lot of young supporters, so it's pretty important to me.
oh, like Sox Fest. It was so well attended
Just
this year.
gone. Yeah, just gone. So when you ask me how I feel about our connection to the team and they just cancel the one thing a year they do that connects you to the team, I had some harsh words for that. So hop on there, take the survey. You know, it might get you heard, it might get you not heard at all, but we'll see.
All right. Another thing that just happened, I think Monday morning, maybe late Sunday night, the White Sox sent 6 players to minor league camp. Nothing unexpected. The big name, Colson Montgomery, um, he wasn't going to come to the majors, so we knew that. My guess is you go to minor league camp, you get a lot more reps.
A lot more reps.
And now we're getting into the final 2 weeks before the start of the season, and the regulars are going to get more time. I mean, regular pitchers are going to get real time, and the starters will start building up innings. Although Kopech and the number 5 starter have not appeared as yet in a real game. But yeah, so those guys are down, and that's fine. They'll be doing more of that regularly. There's still 60 guys in the major league camp, so they've got a lot of room to
A
go and
lot
cuts
of
over the
cuts
next 2
coming.
weeks.
A lot of pink slips in the locker. Yeah.
Um, Meanwhile, other things off, we can't ignore it. Other things off the field on Sunday afternoon, and this was very curious to me. Sunday afternoon, the commissioner's office issued the report saying that there will be no punishment of Mike Clevinger, that he has volunteered to get some therapy with the combined union league,
Yeah.
which does both drug and domestic violence counseling kind of stuff. But volunteer is like, you can volunteer to come down to the station with us, kind of thing
Yeah.
when the
Yeah.
cops show. Uh, I was very surprised. I thought I listened to that. I mentioned before, I listened to the whole interview on the score. Uh, I thought she was very credible. Apparently, Major League Baseball did not find her credible. After they issued that ruling, she posted on Instagram some of the comments she had gotten when she first went public. It's in January, uh, from women who have been maltreated by Mike Clevinger. And wow, yeah. Major League Baseball said, and another interesting thing on the MLB reports, we interviewed more than 15 people. Well, don't you know how many you interviewed? Don't you
Oh,
have
right.
a
Yeah.
record? Can't you say we interviewed 17 people?
By saying we interviewed more than 15 people, what you're telling me is you interviewed 16 people.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Why did you just say that?
yeah.
And then they said thousands of communications. Your mother and I have been married for 43 years. They would be really hard pressed to come up with thousands of communications between us over that span of
Well,
time
I'm
that are still on the
sure
record. They're still on our email or on the
each text message counts as a communication.
yeah.
Then thousands is pretty easy. I would say my wife and I probably share 6 figures of text messages in a year. So yeah, I mean, it's like, if you send a communication that says okay, if that counts as a communication, then all right, that's where they're getting that number if it's in the thousands. I was very surprised. Um, surprised but not shocked, I think would be what it was. I mean, here's where we are. We're in a situation where MLB claims to have done their due diligence, and they claim that this guy did not violate whatever policy, which is probably too lenient, but whatever policy is in place. He will not be punished. I don't think there's any going back and looking at this again. I think Clevenger
I
is
think
now
they said
just,
unless there's new information or evidence.
which, which she seems to have put out pretty much right away after. But it's possible they had that information as well.
I think they probably did.
I would think they did. So it's very, you expect or hope that MLB is going to do the right thing, and time again they tend to not do the right thing. It's true of all major sports organizations.
They knew they were going to get a bunch of reporter interest because that's why they released it on Sunday afternoon. Nobody's in the office, so real reporters can't call it, deal with it. I hope that some organization, be it the New York Times, be it the Trib or the Sun Times, will put a real reporter.
Yeah.
And I would like it to be not a baseball reporter, a real reporter on the case to talk to Major League Baseball and find out their reasoning. Did they believe she's just a liar? We know Mike Clevinger's a liar. We know from his history he is a huge liar. She may be too. We don't know that. Boy, she sounded good on the score when I heard them. And the things that are reported, they're not, don't sound like the kind of things you make up. It's not the first thing that
Yeah,
comes to mind if you're trying to screw a guy.
I mean, we're sitting on the outside of it, and there is nothing about it that seems sketchy to me. There's not.
MLB trade rumors, interestingly, after their story, no comments. Comments are cut off. That's been interesting to see that. One of the other blog sites.
Really? They've
Yeah.
turned off
They
their
do that
comments?
periodically on that kind of thing. No comments are allowed.
Well, I
And
get that because
you
you're
get
going to
crazy
have a
stuff.
lot of,
You have crazy stuff both directions.
exactly. You're going to have a lot of really hateful stuff put on there. Yeah.
Comments were on another Sox blog site, and you had some of the totally misogynistic things come up, and you had some of the totally "I'm done with the White Sox for the rest of my life" stuff come up. Probably both of those things will come toward the middle with time, but yeah, I mean it's a very strange thing for it to occur,
Which
and I believe the White Sox cannot punish him
the
because
White
Major
Sox
League Baseball
cannot punish him.
did not turn it over to them for discipline. So if he comes out and so he's there. I mean, he's there for the year unless he has a 6.05 ERA and they can have an excuse to dump him on baseball reasons, which is not unlikely given how he's pitched since he had his second Tommy John. But okay, so that one that's there.
I
Presumably,
mean,
it's there.
the White Sox are in a very, we even said, it's going to be hard to root for the White Sox if they keep Mike Clevinger. Well, the White Sox can't do anything about having Mike Clevinger right now. Legally, they can't do anything about it. So, they're probably not happy they're stuck with Mike Clevinger with these distractions, and also the fact that he's probably not going to produce all that much interesting on the baseball diamond. But the White Sox are stuck with him, and I think the best we can do as fans at this point, because there are a lot of good guys on that team that we should be supporting and keep our fandom. I think the best thing we can do is show up to the ballpark and boo the hell out of the guy. Just boo him until the sun goes down. Just make it clear we don't want him throwing a single pitch, so that when that ERA creeps to 5.01, he gets booted. And that's, I think, the best we can do. The fans have to, rally behind this piece of crap guy and make our voices heard on how much we don't like this guy, like we did with La Russa. But this guy's way more expendable than the owner's best friend.
And I think one thing that you mentioned in there is the fandom. There's also the clubhouse. Now, to go to another far different human being, José Abreu, who in the past week has said some things about the White Sox. Mild-mannered Jose, trying to be the team leader. Jose, work his tail off every single day, unlike anybody else on the team. Jose was really kind of tearing it up and acting like the problems went beyond Tony La Russa. Now, he didn't say it, and he was very polite in what he said. He was being asked questions and he was answering them. But it sounded like all those rumors last year of a really dysfunctional clubhouse were correct. And Clevinger is not going to make your clubhouse more functional. You're going to have guys that are 100% with him. Yeah, 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 boy, what a line she was. And you're going to get guys that are going, I don't know how he got away with that. That's not going to make for a real smooth group sitting around chatting before and after games and flying to get series with each other. So it's a very, very difficult situation for them, I think, as a team.
I really respect what Abreu said, actually. I know a lot of White Sox fans are upset about it, but I think it was something that needed to be said, and something that needed to be said by someone like him, because we as White Sox fans have trusted José Abreu for the better part of a decade, and I don't think we're wrong about that. I think José Abreu is a good dude, and him talking about that dysfunction, confirmed our beliefs. Yes, you can say, it's not just La Russa. Well, a lot of the stuff that's going to come under the manager's position is going to be because of the manager and because of a lack of leadership, a lack of control. But, we are a very divided country right now. That division goes all the way into the baseball clubhouse. We definitely have some guys who lean more on the proud scale than other guys are likely to lean, Clevinger being one of them. So now you've thrown that into the mix. I'm not going to get into, the racial dynamics, but we're going to put out 5 starting pitchers who are white guys, and we have a team that's a lot of not white guys. And I know Dylan is far leaner on that side. Clevinger, Benintendi. I hope that doesn't come into the clubhouse. I hope these guys can be adults and respect each other and do what they need to do. But these also, not everybody, but a lot of them aren't geniuses in terms of things outside of baseball. And I'm not a genius in terms of a lot of things outside of what I do. So I worry about the clubhouse dynamic. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to Pedro Grifol, who I do think has his head on his shoulders.
He's certainly saying everything right in every way. He seems to be doing things. Oh, one thing, we're going to talk on the field in a moment. When Saturday, I love this because we've been talking about it with the new rule changes. Sox stole 5 bases. They didn't steal any on Sunday, but on Saturday they stole 5. That shows that they're out there working and hustling and trying to take advantage of the new rules and what they do for speed. And
100%.
And that's Grifol. And I think not just not being Tony La Russa, that's the most important thing. But I think in a very positive sense, he's going to be great.
Now, and the survey survey did actually ask what our first impressions of Pedro Grifol are. And I gave a very good review on how I think he's going to change the clubhouse culture and the work ethic of the team. I do actually have a lot of faith in Pedro. I do.
What we'll wait for is during the regular season when somebody loafs down to first base and isn't in the game the next inning. That's what I'm waiting for.
Which will be a big change from the previous manager who
told them to loaf
encouraged loafing to first base for the first time in baseball history. We do have to take our break there. We will come back and talk more about what's going on the field, and we'll continue to talk about some of these rule changes. Actually, a pretty interesting social media video on Instagram from the White Sox interviewing the pitchers about who they thought was going to be bad with the new rules. And we'll talk about that when we come back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. We talked, clubhouse hardship and also the long-haired elephant in the room. But now let's talk a little bit more baseball. So we've got these new rules. Right before the break, we talked about stealing some bases. We're starting to, maybe see a little more activity on the bases, a little more hustle. Some of the new rules will affect that. But one of the new rules, and has probably been the most glaring new rule, has been pitch clock. We have seen a lot of weird pitch clock things happen, including a Max Scherzer double play that was recalled because he didn't get the ball off in time and had to keep pitching to that batter. So instead of getting 2 outs, he had to keep pitching. So interesting stuff there. But the White Sox released an Instagram video. They've been doing a fun thing where they have a question of the day, and the guys all come up and they answer the question. Most of them very little presence as entertainers, I'll say.
Well, you haven't had a chance yet to train Tim Anderson at doing commercials, but I hope that opportunity will come up since you're in town.
We are not a showbiz team, I can tell you that. But they, interestingly, and I thought it was kind of gutsy by the social media team, asked all the pitchers which pitcher was going to have the hardest time with the pitch clock. And there was, some variation in answering, but the biggest ones to come back, most consistent, were Matt Foster and Dylan Cease. And one of these, I haven't looked at how Foster pitches. I'm guessing he takes a long time, although they were actually saying that the players were explaining why, which I thought was cool. Foster, I guess, moves his legs a lot and flaps his glove a lot when he's getting set. So they said that he's going to have a hard time.
Well, that's another new rule. Yeah,
exactly. And with Cease, they were like the guy. I think it was Giolito said he takes 25 minutes between pitches. Actually, Giolito was talking about, he wasn't talking about Cease. He was talking about someone else who takes 25 minutes between pitches. I can't remember who it was, but Cease and it might have been Foster were the ones where they were saying these guys are going to have a hard time. I completely agree with Cease. I mean, he's going to have to be a completely different pitcher. He took so much darn time, taking off the hat. One reason they gave, I think it might have been Jose Ruiz, said it's likely going to be Cease because he goes to the rosin bag between almost every single pitch. And he said that he said that that's going to be a big problem because he has to step off and go to the bag and do his thing, and then he fixes his hat and his belt and his pants, and then he goes up. So we are going to have to see a very different style of pitching from Dylan Cease this year. And I don't know if that's going to be good for him. I don't. We've talked about Cease a ton on this podcast. Of course, I've always been right about how good Cease was going to be. This could be a season where Cease actually backtracks a tiny bit early on while he's trying to figure out a faster way to do what he does, because he really did take his sweet time throwing his 120 pitches in 3 1/3 innings over the last couple seasons. Do you have any thoughts on that stuff?
No, I do think it's to be very, but the mention of the rosin bag, they won't be able to do a thing where they go to the mound and then, oh no, I need rosin, where they step off to get it. I guess you go to the rosin bag before you ever get to the rosin.
Right.
But that could, if they can't do the extra with the rosin bag, which is the legal way to get a grip on the ball, I wonder if it'll affect spin rates. That'll be interesting.
100% will affect spin rates. And if there's a pitcher out there who's going to be hurt by spin rates being affected, it's Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease's whole game is based on spin rate. He has, some of the most majestic spin rates in all of baseball, ever in baseball that we know of, that's been reported.
And the difference was, and that's interesting because their spin rate and their spin direction. In the years he was not doing well, I read a long analysis with video of how his spin was useless. He had huge spin rates, but the direction of the spin was such that it wasn't making the ball break that you wanted to break. I think especially on the fastball. Apparently that changed,
Yeah.
They got his grip altered. I mean, it's just a matter of a slight angle change on your grip, and they got that done, and he was awesome last year. Now, I think he's going to fade back some this year, not to be bad. I think he's still going to be very good, but it's just inevitable. He was incredible last year, and I think G Lead will be better, and I think that'll balance out in that.
I do think I mean I think Cease is legitimately a very very good pitcher now.
Oh, absolutely.
My only thoughts on the setback is going to be the fact that he's got to work almost twice as fast as he's used to working, which is a huge thing when you're talking about breath and being able to build back up and get that grip on the ball, because he takes forever to grip the ball. I mean, you see him when he's pitching, you see him working that glove. I mean, he is like really digging into that thing. So if the rosin bag thing becomes an issue, if grip becomes an issue, we could see a rough April for Dylan Cease.
Things that have happened on the field in spring training. I got to get in my Hanser Alberto, the two hottest now. Anything in the record, pitchers, hitters, whatever, at this point is still, Benintendi, I think, has one hit. Some of it is for real. Lenine Sosa's hitting 126. That's about what Lenine Sosa's going to hit. Hazley's hitting 429. Brian Ramos is hitting 417. Not going to happen. Not going to be in the majors. Eloy is hitting 500. Hell, he could hit 500.
He could. He really could hit 500.
Oscar Galas, a big deal, 369. That's nice. I think he starts in right field day one. I think that's answered, unless when the major league, now this is mostly against minor league pitching. When the major leaguers come in, if he's struggling, then that could change. But right now, he's the right fielder on day one. Hanser Alberto is hitting 500. So I looked him up. He's a lifetime 270 something hitter for a middle infielder. That's really good. He was not good last year. He hit 244. But then I thought, let's look a little deeper into this. And I looked at splits. And his platoon splits are unbelievable. You talk about, well, he's got big platoon splits for an average guy, and it'll mean his batting average is 40% lower against righties than lefties, and his OPS is 100 points lower. Alberto is 100, almost, it's around 90 something, but about 100 points lower career and last year in batting average.
Wow.
Righty to lefty. And almost 200 points lower on OPS. So he cannot hit right-handers at all. This is another Rick Hahn question. Why did he go get a guy? No, it's a minor league contract. It's not taking away from anybody else.
Right.
Why did he want to go get a guy who can't hit right-handed pitching when the White Sox whole problem is they don't hit right-handed pitching well, and they absolutely destroy left-handers? They don't need another guy who can hit lefties.
He wanted to stay on brand, I guess, because that is really crazy how big that split is. And I mean, we don't face lefties because we mash them so much. We face almost all righties. As much as a team can avoid throwing a lefty at us, they do.
In the playoffs, you're never going to see a lefty.
We will never see a lefty in the playoffs. Well, it's interesting. I mean, as you said, nothing really matters yet. But I will say this: I don't watch the spring training games except for occasional highlights, but I do check the box score every day. And I gotta say, the guys who are fighting for a job are fighting for a job.
Oh yeah,
and I'm looking at these sheets and I'm like, I don't know how you don't keep this guy. I don't, and of course it's very early. I'm going to know in 2 weeks how we don't keep people, you guys. I can hear like listeners be like, you idiot. No, I know. But it's cool to see these veterans playing so well and playing so hard, trying to get on this team. And that is one of those things that makes me think Pedro Grifol has their ear. And is motivating them, has little flame under their butts, because these are guys who are almost certainly going to play minor league baseball, but they are out here legitimately working to prove that wrong. And it's given me a lot of respect for Hanser Alberto, respect as much as I can have for Adam Hazley. These these guys are playing some decent baseball right now. It's exciting to see. I would love to see some better production from our guys who are definitely going to be on the team that shows, oh, I want to keep my job. I want to protect my job, because those are the guys we really need to ignite, because they've been, sort of lackluster for the last couple years. But it has been exciting to see these guys, and maybe one of them
And
will make the team from
and
all
they're
this
actually going to
effort.
get a little more playing time than you normally would in the second half of spring training because you got so many guys at the WBC.
Yeah.
So Luis is gone, Joanna gone. So you got two of your mainstay players, your core. Uh,
Eloy.
uh, Eloy is gone. Three. I mean, most of your core
Yeah.
is really gone.
Tim.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Tim hasn't played at all in the spring, other than an inning or two. So I kind of forgot. Although he played over the weekend, but yeah, I kind of forgot about Tim. That's hard to do.
So
Forgot he was in the WBC.
four of your eight position players are not going to be there. Eloy, being DH
And
slash
really,
outfielder.
all four who have been the core for multiple years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So these guys are going to get to keep playing, which I think is going to tell us a lot. Like you mentioned earlier on the podcast with Oscar Colas, who's hitting 369 right now. We're going to see a lot more of Oscar Colas. We are actually going to get to learn if this guy is capable of being a major league starter in a few weeks here. And
he ran into a fence I think on Sunday. There was, he walked away from it. He's fine.
Oh, okay. So he's already in better shape than most of the guys on our team. That's great to hear. But I am excited by seeing these guys play. I'd love to see Billy Hamilton fight his way into this, into the major league roster. Would love to see it happen. I want to see some more of Billy. I want to see him swiping more bags in spring training. I want to see that speed and that energy and that love of the game. But I actually think if we can take away something from spring training so far, which, we really can't. That's why I'm not sitting here talking about how our only pitchers
Oh,
who
you're going to mention the fact that we have to be really scared of the Royals, who have a 3-game lead over the entire Cactus League.
Well, we should be afraid of the Royals anyway, because the Royals have our number. Even when they are barely a Major League Baseball team, they have our number. But I think the thing we can take away that's fun is seeing these veterans really showing out pretty early on. It gives me a lot of hope for the mentality in the dugout, the mentality in the clubhouse, the mentality in the coaching staff, because clearly these guys know that they have to fight, they have to work hard, they have to play better than they did last year in order to get the good job. I love seeing that from these guys early in spring training. I love seeing it, because what does that do? That motivates your young guys to keep getting better. These guys who thought, well, certainly Hanser Alberto and Adam Hazley aren't going to be in competition. Well, now they are. And now you got these young guys who know, I got to work even harder, because these guys are vets. I got to work even harder to get there. And I think that's what makes spring training interesting to begin with. I think spring training overall is pretty uninteresting baseball, but I do like the aspect of seeing the vets showing out to get on the roster, seeing the young guys rise up to try to beat those vets. That's how great baseball players get made, is that competition, that healthy competition within the team that's egged on by a coaching staff that really wants a culture in the clubhouse that says, play hard, fundamental baseball, do well, you get to play in the pros. And I have high hopes for that. That is about all the time we have for today, though. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off here?
No.
Cool.
It's spring training. I don't have to have thoughts.
That is absolutely true. You are currently spring training your brain to get ready for the genius takes we will have throughout the season. I can already hear our boss, Brett Valentini, rolling his eyes as I mentioned the genius takes I will have throughout the season. But there will be good ones, we promise. So hang in there, keep listening. We are just a couple weeks away from real baseball, and we will see you next time on Sharing Sox.